Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, December 19th, 2023, and today we are going to be talking about the 2024 elections and how a possibility of a split-controlled Congress could emerge following these elections. Now, in just around a year, Americans will go to the ballot box and cast their vote for a variety of elections, but none more important besides the presidency than the congressional elections that will determine the composition of this upcoming Congress. Now, on your screen right now is an Axios article dating all the way back to September of this year, saying that the Senate is tilting red and the House blue for 2024. And in a way that American politics normally moves is that this doesn't change between now and election day, at least too dramatically. Yes, things do arise and candidates start to falter, and there are circumstances in which Democrats or Republicans could do better than what a year-out analysis might suggest. But generally speaking, we have good indicators of where we might be in a year from now on election day based on the past three that have been pretty determining factors in special elections, in off-cycle elections like Virginia's governor, or the midterm elections in 2022, or even the most recent 2023 elections that seem to suggest that this analysis won't be wrong come next year. And so in this video, we're going to be exploring a reality and exploring the circumstance at which the 2024 election results could equally provide victories for both Republicans and Democrats in the congressional elections, just on two sides of the map. We start off by looking at the first part of this article. We're not going to go in depth with what they say, but we're going to talk around the Senate for the first and foremost part of this video. We're looking at the 2024 Senate elections in which the map here is conducive to very, quite frankly put, a Republican Party victory, a Republican Party majority. This Senate map in 2024 is the most beneficial map that they could be working with on the GOP side. There are very few incumbents across this race, so they aren't defending that many seats, whereas Democrats are defending quite a few seats when it comes down to this map. You're looking at states like West Virginia, where Democrats have incumbents, Ohio, Montana, all states that Donald Trump won by pretty significant margins, most notably West Virginia and Montana, where Donald Trump's margin of victory in the last two elections were larger than 15 points, West Virginia being one of the most conservative states in the entire country. That's coinciding with Democrats defending their own territory in battleground states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, like Arizona, Nevada, potentially even, depending on how 2024 goes, including states like Minnesota and Virginia. The point being, Democrats have a lot more to lose than Republicans do. And so on the Republican side, they look at 2024 Senate map and they sort of draw it up on their map, right? They go to the RNC, they go to their political strategists, and they come out with this idea. What is the possible way that they lose? How in the world could a map as lopsided as this one result in GOP losses, or potentially prevent Republicans from winning back control of the U.S. Senate? And it will be a question that, if that does become the reality, will be asked for likely the end of the decade, because even in 2018, when Democrats had a blue wave year, Republicans picked up 2 additional Senate seats in 2018 just because this map was so lopsided in favor of the GOP. But realistically speaking, the Republicans will probably win back control of the U.S. Senate. I mean, they already have an automatic pickup in the state of West Virginia solely on the fact that Joe Manchin, the former governor and now incumbent senator, a Democrat, is choosing to retire. He's the only one who could have ever made that race competitive. That's largely because Governor Jim Justice, the incumbent Republican governor who was actually elected as a Democrat, there's a bit of lore there, switched parties and endorsed Donald Trump, but besides that, became a very well-known figure in the West Virginia GOP, a very prominent one, her going into this next election. So he decided that he's going to run for Senate. He's gotten a lot of the backing from national figures, statewide figures. Everybody knows he's going to win not only the nomination, but the general election, even against someone like Joe Manchin, who has put certainly up a strong fight in West Virginia in years past. Joe Manchin says, I'm backing out. A lot of what he says is that he's never lost an election he's ran in, which is technically true, but this one he's going to take out because he knows he's not going to win. So West Virginia already is a safe red pickup. So that brings the Republican Party to around 49 secured seats. 49 seats they do not have to worry about, which means if Donald Trump wins the presidency, they only need 1 more seat for the majority, and if Joe Biden wins, they only need 2. There are 8 toss-up races. 7 out of the 8 are currently controlled by non-Republicans, either Democrats or independents who caucus with the Democratic Party. That's Kyrsten Sinema in Arizona. So we look at the Senate map, and we reasonably could see how coinciding with the presidential election could result in Republicans winning across these states. It doesn't help that on the national numbers, Joe Biden isn't doing too well. In fact, he's doing substantially worse than where he was 4 years ago today, or even Hillary Clinton was 8 years ago today. That is not a good sign going into the next election. Now, things can change on the presidential forecast, but what doesn't change is the fact that many of these states the Democrats are going to be contesting, states like Montana, states like Ohio, are going to see Democrats running on the same ballot that Donald Trump will be running on as well. That won't change. And these two states in particular are ones that Republicans will see a presidential victory by a margin of at least 15 points in Montana, especially in the direction the country is going right now, and Ohio, which could border 9 to 10 points come this upcoming election. It is very difficult to see how anyone can outrun a presidential candidate that substantially. The last time this Senate map coincided with the presidential election was in 2012. And when Mitt Romney won in the state of Montana by a pretty significant margin, Jon Tester was only able to win by 3.7. Now, the good news here for Democrats is although Mitt Romney was able to win in states like West Virginia, Joe Manchin won by 24. Although Mitt Romney won in a state like Missouri, Claire McCaskill won by 15.7%. Won Indiana by around 10 points. Romney won that state. Joe Donnelly wins it by 6. In Ohio, Sherrod Brown was outrunning President Obama. So there certainly are circumstances in which you can outrun a presidential candidate. But I think as we've gotten increasingly more polarized over the past decade alone, I mean, we just take a look and how we have seen a significant dip in cross-party voting in House elections, in Senate elections. There are very few states with incumbent senators from the opposing side of the party that typically wins that state during the presidency. I think there are maybe less than 5 at this point in time. Over a decade ago, you were rivaling 10 to 15. It's crazy to think about, but now that's the way our country is going. And so you look at 2020 even as a perfect example of how strong candidates sometimes cannot outrun the presidential margin. For instance, even in Montana, another state up in 2024, Steve Daines ran against the incumbent governor, Steve Bullock, who came within about 10 points of winning the state, still lost by double digits. I mean, still did not narrow up the state nearly as much as he should have. And, you look at a lot of these states, you can't point out one besides the state of Maine that is different than how it voted on the presidential margin, right? Even in states where Democrats had top-tier candidates and extremely strong enthusiasm around them, funding hundreds of millions of dollars put across these Senate races. South Carolina was 10 points, North Carolina was 2 points, Iowa was 7 points, Kansas was 11. So much hype, so much enthusiasm, so much energy. They couldn't outrun the presidential margin. And I tell you this to point out the 2024 map will likely be similar. Should we see Joe Biden win states like Wisconsin, win states like Michigan, win states like Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Nevada, it's very hard to see how Republicans win those states. But if Republicans are winning the same states they did in 2020, this map is very, very red anyways. It's 52 to 48. And God forbid, for the sake of the Democratic Party, at least that's what they're saying when they look at this hypothetical. But you apply the 2016 results. Let's say Donald Trump does in fact win Election Day by 3 points nationally. It's not out of the question to see how a map like this might arise with a 56 to 44 Republican advantage in the U.S. Senate. The takeaway from the Senate map is that Republicans are favored. But let's switch gears. News that I've been talking about on this channel about New York's High Court or the Appeals Court or the Supreme Court, whatever you want to call it, ordering new congressional maps for Democrats in the state of New York for the House. Why does this matter? Well, it puts the House majority that was so exceptionally slim back in 2022 back into play for the Democratic Party. Now, to be quite transparent, the House was always in play. Take this map and apply it to 2024, there's a non-zero chance, in fact, a 40 to 50% chance that Democrats win back House control with this exact map. But that isn't the exact map. Democrats suffered a loss in North Carolina's redistricting, expected to lose 3 seats there, but Democrats since then and continuously during that North Carolina decision and leading up to pretty much throughout the past year, they have seen substantial victories with the Voting Rights Act in Alabama, with the Voting Rights Act potentially even in states like Georgia and South Carolina. Louisiana is set to redraw. Democrats are making gains there, but none bigger than the state of New York, a state that just recently gave Republicans 11 seats in Congress in a map that realistically should have only sent maybe 8 or 9. But Democrats are horrified by this map. They see this as a substantial loss from where they were just 4 years prior to that election. In 2018, Republicans only won 6 seats. Democrats won 21. This was a very lopsided House map, but one the Democrats were enthusiastic about. They had flipped it from 2016. Republicans had 9 seats, but then came around 2020. Democrats suffered many losses on House elections. New York in specific saw many Republicans win in these battleground districts. So you take 2020 and you fast forward to 2022. What went wrong? Well, a failed congressional map because Democrats tried to do an overwhelming gerrymander, and thus the Democratic-controlled Supreme Court said, even this is too far for us. So in that decision, the New York Supreme Court struck down the map and ordered a redraw. And in that redraw, it gave Democrats just 15 seats. 15 solid seats, to be quite honest, because they should have been able to win more, but 15 solid seats in 2022. Republicans got 11. And so with that, 15 to 11, Democrats said, we need to change this for 2024. Even in our worst case, Republicans should not be able to get double digits in terms of the amount of representatives they are sending from New York. Also, looking at the map, it was a lot of competitive seats. Realistically, they could have won back some of these seats as they did in 2018 versus 2016. There was a difference there. But I will say, the 2022 map that we see now is no longer in place. And so with this decision from the High Court, we are expecting a map that could potentially be as egregious in a gerrymander as making it more lopsided than even 2018. Some people are speculating that because Democrats now control the high courts, they are going to put forth a map that is 22 to 4. Now, I don't think it will be as extreme as that, but the New York Democratic Party has the ability to do so without concern of it being struck down unless they think that this court will think it goes too far. Now, the court's decision doesn't seem to give an entire green light for an excessive gerrymander, but I don't think the court would be opposed to a 21 to 5 map, which is possible given New York's congressional districts that could be proposed by Democrats, because it already has been. And in that circumstance, what you would find is that Republicans would reduce down at least 6 seats, potentially 7, when the House majority is only a slim 5 seats. You take away 5 seats from the GOP and give it to the Democratic Party, they win back House control. It also doesn't help that the generic ballot nationally is outrunning for Democrats than the margin between Trump and Biden. And knowing past election results, with the exception of 2000, even 2016 was the case for this, Democrats gain seats in the House of Representatives in presidential elections. You typically see that happening because, typically speaking, in low turnout elections, Republicans do better. And so looking at the generic congressional vote too, on this basis alone, Republicans are not doing as well as they did 2 years ago. Granted, the margin here is a roughly 2-point difference between what the RCP average was and what it is today. But that makes all the difference in a House map where just a 1% shift nationwide could give Democrats the House majority. I kid you not. Arizona's first, California's 13th, New York's 17th, New York's 22nd, and then over here in the expected win narrowly column, we have 2 others, Iowa's 3rd and Michigan's 10th. 1 point in terms of a shift, and Democrats would have been able to win back House control, and I even think it includes Colorado's 3rd, looking at how narrow that one was, 0.17%. So I look at that and I say, there is a reason to believe Democrats are the favorites to win House control. That's why I have been making this assumption or prediction, because of the fact that all of these moving factors, whether it's redistricting, whether it's the generic ballot, whether it's history, whether it's the last elections, whether it's even the 2023 elections, Democrats have been able to do well in the House and in congressional races when the circumstances are beneficial. The only circumstance that fundamentally changes the Senate map from 2022 to 2024 is that the map is a lot more lopsided in favor of the GOP. If this map was the 2022 Senate map, even with Donald Trump outrunning Joe Biden nationally, I could still see an argument in which Democrats maintain Senate control. But this map is a lot more difficult to make that argument than the ones in the past 2 election cycles. This map is the most beneficial one for the GOP. Democrats lucked out that it was coinciding with 2018. They may luck out again that it's coinciding with 2024. But as of right now, Republicans are the favorites to win back Senate control, and Democrats are the favorites to win back House control. I don't imagine it will be a margin like 2018, but I imagine it will be closer to one that we saw like in 2020, where the margin is very narrow, but still enough to give Democrats a decisive victory over the GOP, swearing in Hakeem Jeffries as the next Speaker of the House of Representatives. These things are possible, plausible, whatever you want to say, and it is, honestly speaking, likely that Republicans win back Senate control while Democrats win back House control, which will be a very interesting governing body regardless of who wins the presidency. Whether it's Trump or Biden, they will have to balance Republicans in Congress, Democrats in Congress. This won't be a trifecta as of right now. Trump was first elected in with the trifecta. Biden was first elected in with the trifecta. This will be the first time, at least as of today, in which, regardless of who wins the presidency, they will not be coming in or ushering in a trifecta based on the results we see. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2024 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.